Well, hello there and welcome to the bathroom of the dollhouse for another reading from The Secret Language of Birthdays by Gary Goldschneider and Hugh Stelfers for February 4th, the day of the Curveballer. That's right. Near the top of the page is a visual representational image of the day of the Curveballer. And we have us an interesting one I can't quite make heads or tails of. That would be some kind of long-snouted fish and a curly Q ahead of it, or a spiral. Perhaps some kind of tapeworm-looking creature from the depths. I don't know. Who's to say? I can't really say. Not necessarily what I would think to throw in there as a representation of the curveballer, but hey, here nor there. That I just like people to see what I have on the page in front of me. So that being said, not altogether all too important, the visual representational image. What is important is it's February 4th, and it's somebody's birthday. So wishing you a happy birthday, if that happens to be the case there for you. But if this video finds you late, I don't know, days, weeks, months, whatever the case may happen to be, well, I hope you had a happy birthday in that instance. But for everybody else who's joining us randomly out of curiosity, or perhaps to celebrate the February 4th birthday, I want to say hello, welcome, and I hope you enjoy yourself. Now, before I dive in with the redirect, something I like to do around these here parts before I do, and that is roll some dice. This is the DykASSt birthday broadcast, so I like to live up to the namesake, but I do so more importantly for synchronicity's sake. That's right. Good roll today. I got a 2 and a 4 for a 6. Now, what is synchronicity, you're probably wondering? Well, my friends, a lot of the times, as I hear tell, we get out in the world and we're not very, open to what we're seeing around us. We usually got the blinders on because we're very laser focused on getting after our goals or our aspirations. But because we're so in the weeds about, going after the daily commute or just things in general like our errands, we're not apt to see the things that come and go across our path. And as I hear it tell, the universe will put things down in our path to help us realize those goals and aspirations. But if we got the blinders on, like I said, we're kind of missing those things. So this is an exercise to help you take off those blinders and maybe perhaps identify the things the universe is putting in front of us. And we do that with by looking for a sign we can't help but mistake. Well, hopefully, that's the intention here. That'd be your daily numbers there. 4 and your 2 for a 6. Now, you don't have to necessarily go to the numbers that I rolled for you, but the intention is there. So it is probably advisable, however, regardless if you go with my numbers, is you take a set of dice with you so you can ascribe directional values to number sets as well as time limits with which to go in those directions. So let's say you get that all established, get you a pair of dice from some old Yahtzee set collecting dust in the closet. Find some place near and dear to your heart to kind of try this out at. See the town square, or maybe some place that you've never been and you want to just kind of explore. You get out there and let's say, when you get out there, like I said, get those blinders off. You never know, the day might start to take on a little bit of a theme. So let's examine it from that perspective. Let's say you're just about to roll yourself your time limit and your directional value to go off in that direction. Maybe see some more numbers as they creep up. And what's this? Boom. Let's say like a groundhog goes across your path, or a gopher, if you like, runs right across where you're getting set to go, right? You know what? Maybe you take a little bit of impulse there. Go on your instinct. See where this groundhog's going. Maybe you turn to follow that guy, and just as soon as you do, boom, a dog's chasing after him too. What's this? Something's going on. You look behind, nothing going on. No, nothing else is coming after you, right? Or the dog or the groundhog. So you set off after that, and you come up over a hill. Maybe the groundhog disappears into a little hovel there, or a hole, wherever they go. And the dog keeps running straight. Is this something's chasing that? Oh, interesting. So you just keep going that direction, right? And before too long, maybe you see the dog starts to disappear before, boom, it runs into like one of them hot dog carts, right? And makes all these things spill off the hot dog cart. And then the dog, it doesn't even grab any of that food that fell off. It just turns and goes another way, right? Well, who's to say? Maybe that's the universe telling you, or that using that dog to tell you to chase that hot dog cart down. Because it made a huge old thud, right? Hey, we got to go with our instincts, things we hear, taste, see, smell, right? So you start heading off after that hot dog cart, but it's in the distance, right? So you're having a hard time keeping up because he collected everything he needed, but he needed something else. So he starts going off, right? So maybe you kind of head off after that hot dog cart and you haven't even looked at your numbers yet, right? Because these things just seem to kind of be pulling at you. This is where the universe wants me to go. And no sooner does that you finally catch up to where that hot dog cart kind of disappeared out of view, and boom, he's gone. Well, shoot. Wow, man, well, maybe this is the right place where I'm supposed to be. You know what? So maybe you collect yourself, look around, and what's this you notice? Oh, you might just so happen to be on 6th Avenue, right? Or 24th Street. Hey, I would say that's a sign that, yep, you were on the right path. So maybe you roll yourself you bend down to roll yourself another time limit and directional value. And what's this? Oh, maybe you see like an arrow spray painted on the ground, right where you were going to roll, right? And you know what? Hey, once again, follow that instinct. Maybe go in that direction there. Maybe you cross the street, find yourself at a corner there in front of what's this? Like a TV store. And you look up and there's that groundhog from Caddyshack on the TV in the window there, just dancing, right? You're like, what the heck? Hey, we saw a gopher just a moment ago, right? Maybe you look up and, hey, what's this? Maybe in the address on that store is your numbers there, your 2 and your 4. Once again, and maybe you look across the street and maybe there's a bank with one of them temperature reading signs. And hey, maybe it just so happens to have the same thing, a 24 degrees readout. Maybe that's not even the temperature, it's just wrong. And then maybe you look down and maybe here you go, that hot dog man comes out. And I think he disappeared in the ether, but now he's come back out. And maybe you're a little hungry and he just restocked everything. And now he gets some fresh dogs instead of the stale ones that have been sitting all day. And then, hey, maybe that dog creeps back up. Who's to say? I don't know. All these things are kind of coming into meet together. But a lot of times I focus too much on the numbers, so I thought I would try to put something together for you that's in theme with just things occurring and you following those things. So, like I said, that's kind of the idea of synchronicity, things popping up, things leading you, your numbers, be it specific items. Maybe you see somebody carrying big old fish everywhere, or the fish start presenting as stickers or murals or advertisements. You know what? Be on the lookout for all those kinds of things. And I say fish because it's just in front of me here with the visual representational image. That said, I think you more or less get the idea, even though I kind of vacillated today. Took a detour, if you like, followed the signs. Well, if any confusion, maybe try one of the days previous. I think I kind of keep things rather consistent in that regard, despite trying to try something new. But in any event, yeah, get out there, see, taste, touch, feel, smell, intuit a little bit of the magic, and you understand why I brought up this exercise, all right? See that the universe is with you on your path. All right, so let's dive in with the birthday read. Your month is February, your day is the 4th, your sign is 14 to 16 degrees Aquarius of the Aquarius II period specifically, and your quality and element is a fixed air. All right, February 4th, the day of the Curveballer. Those born on February 4 rarely do anything in a straight line fashion. And because of their unconventionality, they sometimes make a less than stellar impression as to their intellect. But, in fact, they just have their own unusual way of doing things. And some February 4 people realize early on that they do not apprehend the world as others do, and respond by just acting as weird as they wish. Other February 4 people try to be super straight, but usually fail to carry this off, ending up like a round peg in a square hole. The happiest of February 4 people are plainly themselves, and they do not rely on a great deal of approval or acclaim. The degree to which those born on this day must do things their own way can be both amusing and alarming. And often to accomplish the simplest of tasks, they can use the most roundabout, off-the-wall methods. And they could be called impractical or even perverse, except for the fact that in some strange way, these methods seem to work out for them. For example, they may have a system of filing information or ordering their appointments that would confuse others, and yet they are able to retrieve what they need very quickly, and they stay on top of things. In their unusual cognition, front may be back, up, down, right, left, and so on. And some February 4 people may even display a degree of synesthesia, and that is hearing sounds as colors or colors as sounds, and visualizing words as shapes, and perhaps remembering facts and numbers through vivid associations. Though not always effective within the confines of a pre-existing system or set of rules. It must be said that February 4 people can be highly effective in achieving long-range goals, particularly when they have a chance to structure the work environment. And those born on this day work well with others, display deeply human qualities, and generally are admired for their sincerity. And although rarely leaders, they are very happy to be at the center of the action and hold up well under fire. In February 4, people get bored very easily, and if they spend a lot of time alone, they usually try to keep busy with lots of hobbies, projects, and activities. Part of the reason they are so active is that they must spend lots of time undoing knots which they have unwittingly tied. And they also tend to backtrack a lot or even start all over. In February 4, people usually have an abundance of energy to which they carry out many of their tasks. And how to guide their powers is the most directly constructive way, however, and may well elude them. Often they are taken up with several different endeavors at once, and through the resulting scattering of energy, fail to complete any of them to their satisfaction. And generally those February 4 people who learn to complete their projects step by step and one by one develop their varied potentialities to the fullest. Well, all right. Very interesting, unusual, captivating day, I would say. I enjoyed this one, to be sure, and it wasn't as necessarily hyper-focused on the theme as some of the previous days in Aquarius have been, and especially the Capricorn period. I would say within the focus that they did have on the unusual nature and all the different varieties of examples that they provided, it was a bit hyper-focused in that regard, but I like when they round things out, even if they have to expand within the example. And I think they did that here by and large. So in any event, I like to provide a little bit of a commentary on what we just read, maybe make associations with days previous, and maybe just things that I found interesting. So let's dive in, all right? February 4, the day of the Curveballer. You're rarely apt to do anything in a straight line, they said. And you may not give a great impression as to your intellect, but the reading claims you just have a very unusual way of doing things. And as it happens, you may just be someone who realizes this dynamic, all right? Because because some don't suffer the frustration of not knowing why they aren't like others. If you know as much, hey, you leave that behind and you kind of have accepted it. And I'd say that's a huge thing. A lot of people have to work most of their lives to figure out. And it turns out it sounds as though it may work better for you than the alternative. That is saying to try to fit in, as you may not be able to play things very straight. Though they did say there are some of you that do. So to which the reading claims you may be all the happier as you can be yourself and not rely on the approval of others. That's right. That's huge. That's something, again, a lot of people spend their whole lives trying to figure out or reconcile. The reading also claims, much to the day's title, you may implement very roundabout ways to accomplish even the most rudimentary of tasks. Leaving others perplexed and even amused is rooted in the conventional ways as they may be in how things are done. But to their surprise, not only do your systems work for you, but you flourish amidst what you've cooked up in order to make those things connect. The same way I would say like a German World War II potato masher grenade, it works the same explosive ends as like a American pineapple, but it's realized in a completely different fashion, right? But with that in mind, it said you may not just do things differently. You may have a different way of perceiving the world in terms of how you mentally process information. They brought up synesthesia and just the way you may interpret up and down, left and right. It may be completely different for you. I don't think I've ever seen this pop up in the reading before. So interesting. I know that definitely exists amongst people, but it's very interesting that they would say that it's apt to happen to more people on this particular day. Who's to say why, right? Or if it even applies. I don't know. It seems like a little bit of a reach, but here nor there. mentally process information, I said, and in this way, I'd argue finding a way to adapt to environments geared for how things are more usually perceived. It kind of speaks to a kind of patience and a wherewithal you must also have, and you can, I could say, be admired for having to adapt to, because that's got to be huge. If you perceive the world totally different, you've got to function in it, right? So, what kind of obstacles are you overcoming in order to do so? Huge, I would say. So for that fact alone, the hat I'm not wearing is off to you there. All right. Beyond that, you're said to work well with others, display deeply human qualities, and you hold up well when the heat's turned up, and you can be very sincere. Interesting to say, you may spend a lot of time addressing issues you have unwittingly created for yourself, to the extent you may also have to backtrack a lot of the times or start over altogether, and speaks to why you may always be busy. And I know that a little bit for myself, right? Just 100 different projects. Which one do I work on today? A little bit of paralysis analysis there sometimes too, or analysis paralysis rather, said the right way. See, I'm doing it myself, flipping things around there. So they say you may fail to finish things you start, lose energy, lack satisfaction with the projects you do finish for a rather focused but captivating birthday breakdown. And you know what? The number 4 is my number 2 here. Oh, maybe I'm getting ahead of myself. But yeah, February 4th. Your number is number 4. And that's what we're going to get in here too. But I say my number is also number 4. So I understand a lot of these things myself. That's kind of what I'm trying to say. So with that having been said, kind of a little foreshadowing as we dive in with your numbers and your planets. That's right. I got ahead of myself. Got too excited there to relate some personal information. All right. Those born on the 4th day of the month are ruled by the number 4 and by the planet Uranus, or Uranus, depending upon how you may like to say it there. Those ruled by the number 4 can be difficult and argumentative, it says, and are particularly sensitive about being teased or rejected for their peculiarities. And these traits are magnified in February 4 people. Generally, those ruled by the number 4 are not overly concerned with amassing wealth, and February 4 people are no exception. Ruled by the planet Uranus, number 4 people can be quick and explosive in their change of mood. Qualities enhanced, along with certain quirky and odd traits, it says in parentheticals, for those born on February 4, as their sign Aquarius is also ruled by Uranus. All right. No, it didn't say too terribly much, but this was a pretty personalized numbers and planets entry here. So let's dive back into the notes and see what I had to say about it here. So the number 4 in Uranus for a dual Uranus-ruled day, said to impart difficult and argumentative traits, which I didn't really pick up on, quite honestly. It said you're sincere and, you worked well with others. I didn't pick up on argumentative. Doesn't mean it doesn't apply. They just maybe didn't have space to drill down on it. Hopefully it doesn't apply, right? But also there's explosive changes of mood worked into the bargain here. And in your case, apparently, quirky and odd traits also manifest. And that we did kind of pick up on. Now, in general, astrological terms, Uranus is said to be an electric planet that shakes up the traits of the planet to which it's coupled in co-rulership. But on its own, it's said to represent idiosyncrasies, rebellion, and a propensity to change the rules, and the qualities of not doing things in a straightforward fashion. Now, does that sound like anybody we know based on the breakdown? That's right. I would say it does, assuming it applies again. But with that in mind, when it comes to dual rulership, those qualities are then said to only be further heightened. So Uranus is bolstering itself, right? When in other days, like say it's coupled to Jupiter, sometimes it shakes up the qualities that Jupiter may impart, for better or for worse, just depending upon the planet that its co-rulership is with. So when I first approached the Uranus thing, I was hoping like Uranus would shake up its own qualities, maybe ironically, but maybe unironically, it just kind of heightens those things. So kind of took some of the excitement out of it, if you like, but here nor there. Doesn't add, let's see what I say. Not really much was said for the day in that particular respect. So I was a little bit let down when it came to finding out about Uranus as a dual rulership day. But it's basically everything that was in your breakdown, just a little less. So I found it interesting. I just wanted to bring that up for you. But I would say it basically speaks to, almost informs a lot of what was said in the breakdown. Quite interestingly. Also, January 31st was also a co-ruler Uranus day, but it was a wildly different day, to be said. This is today was a lot more like what I would imagine a Uranus day to be. January 31st, not at all the case. And that having been said, their numbers in planet entry was a little bit different too, even though it didn't really, it said even less, I would say. But very interesting to be sure. I like this one a lot more because January 31st was a little down in the dumps there, to be sure. But hey, maybe jump back to January 31st, see if that speaks to you also. Because again, it was a co-rulership day of Uranus and Uranus. So it might be interesting to see the differences and similarities, especially since it was such a rather somber day, to be told. The day of the poetic song, I believe. That having been said, that's been your numbers and your planets. So let's move on to your tarot. That's right, one of the more eclectic of the New Age metaphysical ideologies. But hey, it's here in the book. We don't have to take it home with us, start dealing out the cards to predict our future or however they are used. But maybe that's something that's right up your alley. And this is a little way to segue you into it. Who's to say? Give you a little bit of a taste if you like. All right, let's dive in. The fourth card of the major arcana is the Emperor, who rules over worldly things through wisdom, the primary source of his power. The Emperor is stable and wise, and the force of his authority cannot be questioned. The positive associations of this card are strong willpower and steadfast energy, and negative indications include stubbornness, tyranny, and even brutality. All right, hey, this was not personalized for you at all, total copy paste job, but that's all right. Sometimes we can derive a little bit of value out of what it had to say. So let's dive back into the notes here, do a little bit of a rehash, and then see what we see. The Emperor, the ruler of worldly things through wisdom and strong willpower. Let's see here. And also steadfast energy is a positive, but stubbornness, tyranny, and brutality as negatives. Which basically I'd argue also informs the breakdown, the positive side of things. Living an unusual, quirky life, one you essentially have to affect or you have to adapt to and affect certain traits of your own in order to survive and adapt to, right? And you got to apply that steadfast energy to hang in there and do as much. Especially in a society modeled to function in a way that you may not mentally operate, right? So you're going to have to have a sense of personal stability despite an erratic nature in order to survive. And from that process, I would argue, comes that wisdom that they mentioned, right? Or with January 31st, people, they got the same card that were anything but tyrannical and brutal as far as this negative aspect is concerned. But to this extent, the book mentions something they hadn't mentioned before in the tarot, and that is that they might not possess those qualities themselves, but they may receive it from the outside from others. And that was kind of interesting there, because it seemed like a little bit of a cop-out, because the way they've been doing the rest of it, it seems like those are things they possess, but here it might be something that affects you. But what's interesting here, as I said, for you specifically, you might have a tendency to get made fun of, or people give you a hard time, right? I would say there's a little bit of that brutality, once again, coming from the outside. So perhaps there was a case to be made for what they mentioned on January 31st, though they didn't bring it up here, interestingly. So I don't know, just something of note. It's a good thing I'm diving into it, providing a little bit more context, adding some value to it, hopefully, for you. What else did they say? I think that was about it. First time that came up, like I said, but I can see how it applies here too, because I didn't get a sense of tyrannical or brutal nature from you. But maybe a little bit of stubbornness, right? You got to be stubborn in order to hang in there, I would say, and get things done, especially if you got a lot of those issues coming up with your work, getting things tied in knots, if you like. But in any event, that's been your tarot, so let's move on to your health. That's right, your health here. February 4 people often exhibit a degree of hypochondria. For some born on this day, discovering new complaints can become a fetish. Also, an interest in unusual methods of treatment. I was about to say hobbies for some reason. An interest in unusual methods of treatment sometimes accompanies this day. And most February 4 people keep up with the latest, most up-to-date information on health as well as therapy. And this passion for what is most recent and modern also relates to other areas of their lives. In their cooking, they are often on the lookout for new recipes and exciting combinations, and the same is true for their approach to exercise and keeping fit, as they may want to get in on the latest craze if they find it enjoyable. And February 4 people must learn to balance these aspects of their lives and not go off the deep end. All right. Pretty interesting health dynamic today. You know, they didn't really say a lot in terms of how they usually write these things out, but I'd say they did say quite a bit, quite honestly, just in a different way of doing it. So let's dive in here. You're often taken to exhibit hypochondria, all right? And this came up the other day, February 2nd. So maybe a bit of a sporadic through line, I might posit, all right? Though complaints to you might be a little bit like a fetish, they said. And that word that they use, that dynamic, it's seemingly new, but I would say that also carries through a little bit here with the Aquarius period. Though they don't necessarily mention it directly, it is something you can kind of find if you read between the lines. There's also an interest in unusual treatments that seems kind of part and parcel with your purported nature that was conveyed in the breakdown. And you're apparently up to date with diet and exercise trends, so nothing is necessarily recommended in this particular area, which is very interesting. I would think that would be a conventional kind of thing people affect, right? Because it seems normal, like let's stay up to date with things. But here it's mentioned for somebody who's got a quirkiness or an unusual way of doing things, and you stay up to date with stuff. But that said, I would say that is actually a little unusual. Most folks are behind the times. So it's interesting that something that's unusual is probably something that is in a lot of people's minds a rather normalized thing. But if you really think about it, it's not. So boom, kudos to you. You got something that folks think is normal but actually isn't because they can't dedicate themselves to it. I just came up with that. That wasn't even in the notes. What else do we have here? They note that you're, like I said, up to date with things, and they also recommend finding a balance, however. Now, they didn't say much about what those trends may or may not be, but one thing that I thought I'd like to impart here, because they haven't been doing so much as of late, is the body areas. Body areas for Aquarius are said to be the circulatory system in the lower extremities, as well as the ankles. And so the Capricorn, they would bring up, because their body area was the veins, that they need to cut out cholesterol, to say animal fats and dairy fats, so they keep the veins open and clear. And for you, I've only seen it mentioned maybe once, but it makes a lot of sense. They said they cut out red meat so as to take care of the heart. Like I said, it didn't come up here for you, but it bears being mentioned, I would say, if the body area for Aquarius folks is the circulatory system. But also at risk, as mentioned elsewhere, is stroke and embolism. And considering the lower limbs and extremities is said to be a body area too, I've been recommending that folks head that off at the pass and not start addressing it at older age by getting some compression socks. That's right. Especially if you lead a sedentary lifestyle, you're always sitting down. Keep those ankles compressed, right? Don't chance a stroke. In any event, that's been your health. So let's move on to some advice. All right. Some thoughts are better kept to yourself. All right. Work on yourself privately and get some things straightened out. All right. Your eccentricities are charming, but can also irritate people at times. And learn to laugh at yourself occasionally. All right. Hey, I like this one for not just you, but for me too. That's right. Hey, a lot of times I think we can take the advice, even if it's not necessarily for us, and work it into our lives, right? Give it some time to think about. That being said, let me straighten this up just a little bit here and dive into what I had to say. I had to write it in a book, so I'm all scatterbrained, if you like, here, all over the place. They said some thoughts are better kept to yourself, right? I'm assuming you may say things or maybe relate ideas that some find too crazy and it may leave the wrong impression, right? or it may not do you any favors by relating as much. The things you find interesting, but that conventional people are just like, what's this person on about, right? So measure that out, all right? Find a balance. For me, I like to, especially set in my days, I like to explain everything to folks. And if you weren't picking up on that, and so I have to be careful about doing that because sometimes, like I say, it might irritate individuals. So it's kind of similar. See, especially if you know you're a square peg in a round hole, as they said. All right. They said straighten things out in private. Okay. It's great advice in general. I didn't get the idea that you worked things out in public per se. But if what is seen of you in public is seemingly oddball or quirky, definitely leave the parts that need worked out to be done at home. That's right. You don't need to work it out on a public bench, I wouldn't say. So they don't need to, oh yeah, you don't want a chance being committed. That's right. Okay, so your nature can be charming but irritating, they said. Consider the idea of showing just enough to leave folks captivated and wanting more. That's right. Show a little bit, but not a lot. All right. I'd say work on discovering that balance in private, probably. All right. So at least based on the advice. What else do we have here? Learn to laugh at yourself, they said. Probably not in the way that the bullies do, all right? But don't be afraid to lighten your own mood. Lessen some of your frustrations that are probably baked into the process of just getting along, right? As I'm sure you have some frustrations, especially if you're always tying yourself up in knots, like they said, especially those that need undoing. So, in any event, that's been the advice. So, let's move on to your meditation. All right, let me get the book centered here so I can relate to you your meditation. Once the ball is in the air, almost anything can happen. All right. I don't know what to make of that one, but here nor there. Once more, once the ball is in the air, almost anything can happen. All right. It's your birthday. That's your meditation. Even if I had an interpretation for you, I wouldn't relate it to you because I don't want to influence how that may affect you or help you out, right? It's just for you. That having been said, your meditation in the can, as it were, let's move on to your strengths and your weaknesses. Let's hold up the objective mirror and see where we got the girth, if you like, and we're otherwise a little more deflated, perhaps. That's right. Your strengths, you're sincere. I like that one. You're lively, and you're entertaining. Oh, those are different. They're kind of the same, right? But your weaknesses. Oh, let's hold that objective mirror back up and flip it to the side that blows up your face. Yeah, maybe shows off some of the things you maybe otherwise are superficially insecure about within the metaphor there. That's right. Your weaknesses. Oh, you only got two. Normally there are three. Okay, your weaknesses. You're scattered. You're unrealistic. All right. Hey, you know what? I would say today wasn't all too groundbreaking. A lot of days these things are, let's just say, kind of tough to deal with, I would say, especially the past few days. Oh, my Lord, for sure. But a lot of times I like to say our strengths and weaknesses can, sometimes our weaknesses can be strengths and vice versa. And I say that because there was one day in particular I saw impulsive as a strength, and then the next day, it was a weakness. I'm like, that's interesting. It would trade back and forth like that. But I think the argument stands. It just depends on the individual who it applies to and the situation with which you find yourself in, right? So that being said, I often like to say weaknesses can be strengths. So you're scattered and unrealistic. Hey, you know what? Maybe you need to find an approach to some particular problem that everybody else is approaching in a conventional manner. And if you're scattered and unrealistic, you never know. Maybe that helps kind of figure out the answer to the problem. You never know because you've got all these things all over in all these places. Maybe the fact that they're not seen in a straightforward fashion cooks up other ideas to help provide the solution. I don't know, but it seems a little unrealistic, doesn't it? Hey, you know what? Not always the case. Sometimes that's what it takes, right? That being said, your strengths, you're sincere, lively, and entertaining. I often like to argue that your strengths are going to help you improve upon your weaknesses. Here, I don't necessarily see that being the case. If we're trying to improve upon scattered and unrealistic with, these particular strengths here. But if you're sincere, I would say, hey, you're going to be honest with yourself about what you need to do in order to improve upon those things. Lively and entertaining, hey, you're probably going to find a way to make it fun, I would say. And you know what? I often like to say make a game of things for folks who have trouble approaching life in that regard. They're always frustrated with things. Not the best case to argument to be made today, but I would say, hey, you know what? If that's what it takes, that's what it takes. They seem to apply to different things altogether, so trying to find a through line, a little bit difficult. But I think the argument stands regardless. That having been said, I also like to say don't get rid of your weaknesses altogether if that is an intention of yours, because they do kind of make us who we are, all right? They're a part of us, so just find that balance in relating them, and you'll be off to the races, I would say, if you already aren't. But that having been said, that's been your strengths and weaknesses, so let's move on to those born on this day. And when we get in with those born on this day, not only do we get to see who shares your company, but something I like to do is focus on this particular section with a idea of trying to figure out our passions in mind. Because all too often I get out in the world and meet folks, ask them what they do, and more importantly, if they like it, and they don't. And I think it's just because, they haven't had an opportunity to put in the time and the work to figure those things out. Because sometimes it takes time and effort to figure out not just our passions, but what we like to do in general. And I think if we have that established, we can start driving after things that we find personal fulfillment from, right? Make life a little bit more tolerable, if you like, because I think that's what we should be doing. Maybe get out of those jobs that we just wrote or kind of in a rut there. And we just, the only value it really provides is that it fills our bank account. But if we can do both, if we can find a job that provides us with financial stability and it's in doing something we have a passion for, boom. I can't wish anything else for you on your birthday. It's that, for sure. So let's look at it from that perspective and hopefully maybe drum up some inspiration to start chasing after and figuring out our passions, if you haven't already. So let's get into it here. We have Charles Lindbergh, an aviator in the first successful solo Atlantic Ocean crossing. We have Isabel Perón, an Argentinian president and the first South American woman head of state, and ousted on corruption charges, it says. We also have Francois Rabelais, a French humanist, comic satirist, and responsible for Gargantua, maybe a comic strip, who's to say. We also have Ferdinand Laguerre, a French painter and a sculptor, Ida Lupino, a British-born film actress and a director of The Bigamist, it says, and was also a producer. Perhaps still is, I don't know. We have Rosa Parks, the African-American Alabama citizen, refused to move to the back of a segregated bus and sparked the Montgomery boycott. Interesting. We also have Lawrence Taylor, the New York Giants linebacker and the only NFL Defensive Player of the Year, also an all-time sack leader. And this is an older book, so maybe that stat has been changed, who's to say. We also have Dietrich Bonhoeffer, an anti-Hitler German theologian, and was executed, it says. Oh, geez. We also have Dan Quayle, the U.S. Vice President and Senator of Indiana, Alice Cooper, the rock star, David Brenner, the comedian. We also have Gyo Yihua, perhaps, I don't know, it's a Chinese name, Chinese world #1 ranked table tennis player. We also have Betty Friedan, a female activist and a National Women's Political Caucus writer, and the writer of The Feminine Mystique. We also have Chogyam Trungpa, a Tibetan Buddhist teacher and famous for cutting through spiritual materialism. All right, who else do we have? Let's get to the second page here. We have Linda Cohen, a guitarist and a composer, Adja Jambor, a Hungarian pianist, Raymond Dart, a British anthropologist, and a neuroanatomist. Let's say that. McKinley Cantor, a Pulitzer Prize-winning novelist of Andersonville. We also have Enric Lensdorf, a conductor, and Ludwig Erhard, German chancellor. Boy, we had a lot of Germans today, did we not? A lot of foreign names. I messed up quite a few, so let's get some butchering done on my side of things. It's not done on malice, it's just hooked on phonics doesn't often work with me. With the names there, all right? Specifically today, it would seem. That having been said, I know it's a big ass tall order to take inspiration from other people's accomplishments, but hey, maybe me just putting the bug in your ear help you start stirring up the fires of inspiration there, or just start getting after chasing down your passions, assuming you haven't done so already. Because like I said, if there's anything I can wish for you on your birthday, it's that you're jumping out of bed doing backflips, literal or figurative, to get on with your day. That's right. So there's that. And with those born on this day having been relayed, that essentially rounds out your birthday breakdown. Except to say your season is winter, your sign once again is Aquarius, of the Aquarius II period specifically, and your quality and element is fixed air. And what's that? That's a different video altogether. I'll leave at the end if you're interested. But this has been February 4th, the day of the Curveballer, from The Secret Language of Birthdays by Gary Goldschneider and Use Elfers. I have an affiliate link for this book down in the description. Save the hassle having to type it in the browser if you're interested in picking up a copy. It's right above a little personal message I like to leave for folks for the birthdays there. But hey, this thing makes an excellent coffee table book if you're in the market to, I don't know, maybe break the ice in an unusual way. That's right. I know you've got that handled for sure, but maybe, you know what, this particular time you want something else to do some of the heavy lifting, and the book's going to get it done for you, or for better or for worse, as I kind of mentioned there during the read. But that having been said, the book having been relayed, not altogether all too important. Not when it's somebody's birthday. That's right. What's important around here, once again, wishing you a happy birthday. So I hope you have a happy birthday. I hope you enjoyed yourself here, took something from it. Even if the birthday didn't apply, sometimes these things don't. My grandmother's birthday was the other day, and I didn't see her in that at all. But you know what? Other days, the dad, the mom, boom, it seemed to line up really well. So in any event, once again, happy birthday. And for everybody else that joined us, hey, I hope you enjoyed yourselves too, and you join us for your birthday read. That's right. Lest I forget, however, your daily numbers. That's right, your 2 and your 4 for a 6. I know my example was a little all over the place, but hey, the perfect day for a curveball, I would say. And I didn't even plan it that way, so synchronicity right there. Perhaps go back to January 31st, find out all about that, and hear that synchronicity example to get an idea from one of my more conventional, straightforward attempts. That having been said, I want to thank you for the pleasure of your time and the privilege of being able to share your birthday with you. I take a lot of efforts to get these things out and do them as fast as I can for you, but with the care that they require, so sometimes they're late. But that having been said, I take a lot of enjoyment out of it, and I hope you did as well. So once again, happy birthday. Take care of yourselves and go out there and do things in a not so conventional way and be all the happier for it, all right? Because you know what? It's who you are, I would say. That's right. And don't forget some compression socks. Maybe help yourself out in the later years there. A little preventative maintenance. That's right. Okay, happy birthday. And once again, take care of yourselves.